Hi Newcomb Secondary College students, staff and parents. I'm your alumni coordinator, Jennifer Chiu, and I'm delighted to be speaking with Professor Barney Glover, the Vice-Chancellor of Western Sydney University today to announce the Glover Family Award. The award is available to a talented and motivated Year 11 Newcomb student each year to encourage them to pursue a career in STEM and support them through any barriers that they might face. So Barney is a member of our alumni, having graduated from Newcomb High School in 1976. His sister Lynn was one of our very first students back in 1969, and his brother Jerry was in the 1977 year group. Barney's here today to tell us about the Glover Family Award and his career pathway. Welcome, Barney. Thanks for joining us today.
It's lovely to be with you, Jennifer, and lovely to be able to talk about Newcomb High and the Glover Family Award that you've mentioned.
Yeah. So can you tell us about this new award and why you wanted to give back to the school in this way?
No, I'm very happy to. And it's a Glover Family Award, and you touched on my sister and my brother, Lynn and Jerry, who both went to Newcomb. And Lynn was a foundation student at the school, starting in 1969, I think, for the foundation year. So they've celebrated their 50th anniversary recently of that group of coming to the new school in 1969, and I started in 1971. And so we've always had a connection to Newcomb High, growing up in East Geelong and attending Newcomb High. And we were keen to give back something to the school because it has helped us enormously, those experiences, those formative years as a young person in high school in Geelong in the 1970s. And so we're very pleased to do it, very much focused on STEM because, of course, I'm a mathematician. So I'm very interested in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and hopefully provide a little bit of financial support to help someone find their way into Year 12 and continue on with a career in STEM beyond that. So we're very, very pleased to be able to help the school. And I must say, after all of these years, I'm impressed with what the school has been able to achieve, and I'm glad that you're in the role of reaching out to the alumni, and it's a great alumni for Newcomb High.
Yeah, it's brilliant to be connecting with so many past students who are equally as happy to give back in some way, whether it's being a guest speaker or, like yourself, giving a donation to the school, which is brilliant. So what would a grant like this have meant to you back when you were a student at Newcomb?
Look, I think any sort of financial support at the right time is always valuable in the right circumstances. And I know perhaps not in my case, but certainly for many of the students who studied at the same time I did, we were aware of the challenges they had in their family lives. They were coming from areas of Geelong that were disadvantaged areas in terms of low socioeconomic status areas. And that meant that there were additional challenges in life to be able to stay at school longer. And this was in a period where a lot of students left school in Year 9 and 10 as soon as they were able to because there were jobs available. We had fewer students who went through to Year 12, very different to today, where we need to encourage young people to stay at school right through to Year 12 and look for opportunities post-secondary school in vocational training or in higher education. It makes a real difference in life. But I knew many of my friends and fellow students at Newcomb that would have had, I think, a great additional source of assistance and help at a vital time to help them go on to study in Year 12. So it would have made a difference then. Hopefully it will also be helpful winding the clock forward to 2021. So I'm looking forward to the first recipient.
And of course, now we are going through some tough financial times with COVID, and I think a lot of families would appreciate this sort of support. So can I take you back to your upbringing? Can you tell us a little bit about the old days and what the school days were like?
Well, I enjoyed the period at Newcomb High. Before Newcomb, I attended what we used to affectionately call Old East Primary School, East Geelong Primary School, which is again another very, very old primary school in Geelong, I think dating from the middle part of the 19th century originally. So primary school there, and then this new school was being established as the suburbs of Geelong, on that southern fringe of Geelong, started to develop. The new Newcomb High School opening up as an alternative to Geelong East Tech, and as it was then, and of course Geelong High. So being close by, it was natural that my sister would be a foundation student and that I would follow to Newcomb, and certainly no regrets. It was a great experience and great friendships. Friendships at high school last a lifetime, as we all know, and you stay in touch with people and you watch their careers and their lives and the challenges as well as the successes that they have. Of course, when I arrived in 1971, there were still portables everywhere. Some buildings were emerging. I think the assembly hall had taken shape or was about to be finished, and I think the library was being used at that stage. So there were some buildings for this new school emerging, but still a lot of portables. Noel Tuzel was the principal at the time. Great group of teachers. They were challenging times as well. I think students occasionally weren't as well behaved as they should have been, but that's the nature of school as you come to grips with high school. But I thoroughly enjoyed those years, and they were in many ways pivotal to my choice of both a lifetime commitment to education, which has now brought me to the position I'm in Western Sydney University as Vice-Chancellor, and also this great passion I have for mathematics, which influenced me right through to university and beyond, and at a time when not everyone went to uni, of course, so a very different part of life compared to 2021. But they were great years. I played football for the school. I enjoyed that. Wasn't a great footballer. I played for St Albans, for those who know a little bit about football around that part of Australia. I was very fortunate to be school captain in 1976. I'm very proud of that, and worked with the Student Representative Council as well for a number of years. And again, that was important to understand student governance issues and to be involved in supporting the school to achieve all of its aims, which is so important, but also to provide a voice of students to the principal and to other teachers. So great experiences in sport, with friends, as well as, of course, preparing me for university, which I was very grateful for.
So what subjects did you do at school, and why did you pick those subjects?
Well, as I said, Jennifer, I was passionate about mathematics and science, so I was always looking for a way to focus my my academic interests into the sciences. So physics, chemistry were important to me. As much mathematics as I could do, and in those days that was 2 mathematics subjects at Year 12, pure and applied mathematics, and of course English. And I was very fortunate. I did very well in all 5 subjects in Year 12, and I'm very proud of how well I did, but very much reflecting the great education I had at Newcomb High at the time. And there were a number of other students in my year that did very, very well, and that was at the very early stages of developing the school. So we're all very pleased that we could, 1, do well, and 2, go on to uni and represent the university, the school in that context, whether it was the University of Melbourne in my case, or Deakin, which was emerging as a new university at that time. So Deakin was attracting a lot of students from Geelong High School. So yeah, no, it was important for me to get into the sciences and to do as much mathematics as I could.
And so after school, as you say, you decided to study maths at university. Can you tell us why and what your thoughts were at the time?
Well, it's a good question, because one of the challenges, I think, for students coming from a background where perhaps the family doesn't have the resources to really support a young person to go to university, and that's the case now, although we fund universities very differently in 2021 than the way we did in 1976, for example, even though tertiary education then was free after the Whitlam government in many ways. But there were still costs associated to leaving home and going to live in Melbourne. And so it was actually not an easy decision to make to go on to university. There were other opportunities that young people could pursue. But nevertheless, I was passionate about doing as much mathematics as I could. So I became what was called a bonded studentship holder to teach in the Victorian Education Department. So the Victorian Education Department said, if you're prepared, Barney, to be a high school teacher when you finish your course at uni, then we'll provide you with some funds to keep you at uni for a few years, and then you'll become a teacher. So that was hugely valuable. It meant I could get to uni, I could study maths and science subjects, and by the end of my undergraduate degree, it was all mathematics. And of course, then look to a career in education as a high school teacher, which is the first thing I did after I left uni. I did a master's degree in mathematics, and eventually the education department suggested I really did need to get out and start teaching. They wanted me in classrooms, and I was great. I taught in country Victoria for about 7 years, first of all in Cobram, up on the Murray, and then Horsham in the Wimmera. And they were great experiences, and bringing up a young family and living in regional Victoria. And after, of course, a few years in teaching in Victoria, 7 years, I decided I wanted to get back to teaching in universities. So made the transition in the late 1980s to teaching in universities, and that's been the career path for the last 30 years to lead me to being a Vice-Chancellor. So for a long time I was a lecturer in mathematics, and then I moved my way through the university system to leadership of 2 Australian universities. But one thing that's characterised my life, and I think reflects something about the Glover Family Award, is a commitment to education. Education is transformational in people's lives, and there's a huge amount of data that students now at Newcomb should look at to say there is a particularly important public and private benefit and dividend from higher education and vocational education and training. So education has been important, and helping those who may be in a disadvantaged set of circumstances to achieve an opportunity to go on to uni has been important to me. And that's been part of my life and career pathway to now, and still is a very important part of what I do at Western Sydney. So that's a sort of a snapshot of why mathematics, and now all of these years later. And I must say that mathematics, which that great interest I had that was supported by some great teachers at Newcomb. I remember one, Graham Mitchell, who taught me maths in year 9, Form 3 as we would call it, being one of the first teachers who took me aside and encouraged me to do more mathematics. He felt that I had a great passion for it and an ability, and that I should do as much as I can. And that was an important moment for a young 14, 15-year-old to hear that and to say, yeah, okay, I am interested in there. This can lead to a lifelong journey of doing something you love. So I do thank Graham and that intervention so many years ago, probably something like 1974 now when I think about it. But a great teacher in a great school at the right moment is always transformational. So I'm pleased about that, and I'm pleased now as a Vice-Chancellor of a very large Australian university, I have a chance to help many students to achieve that same sort of ambition.
Absolutely. So can you tell us what a Vice-Chancellor actually does, and the sorts of skills and attributes that you need to have for your line of work?
A Vice-Chancellor of an Australian university is a very interesting question, Jennifer. I'm the Chief Executive of the university. So if you use the language of business, I'm the most senior person in the organisation. So I'm responsible for all aspects of what makes the university a success. And of course, if things go wrong, I'm also responsible for those as well. And we're a university, we have a turnover in terms of total revenue of about $900 million a year. So a very large institution. We have about 50,000 students and nearly 5,000 staff across a dozen campuses here in Australia, particularly in Western Sydney, but also in Vietnam. We have a campus offshore in Vietnam where we have many students studying with us there. So a Vice-Chancellor's job is very much running a very large organisation, very complex organisation, to achieve some extraordinarily important outcomes, because we're here to generate graduates that can contribute to society, and obviously through their careers as alumni, but importantly in the contribution they make to society. What they give back as highly educated people in their life is so important to us. So it's a great responsibility alongside the research we do. We do a great deal of research in areas of critical importance to our region, but increasingly globally important. So it's a great job, without a doubt, and I'm very proud to be a Newcomb High alumni who is leading an Australian university. And this is the second Australian university I've been Vice-Chancellor of. Before this, and I've been a Vice-Chancellor now for about 12 years, before this I was the VC at Charles Darwin University in the tropics of Northern Australia. And again, a great Australian university doing interesting research in tropical infectious disease research and tropical environmental management, as well as doing remarkable teaching in Northern Australia in the tropics. So it's great to be in Sydney. The weather's a little different to Darwin, but it's been a great journey as a Vice-Chancellor.
And I think that puts you in a uniquely qualified position to perhaps be giving some tips for any current students interested in pursuing STEM at a university tertiary level. Yes, any tips for them there?
Well, I think one thing that's very true, and it's a particular policy imperative of the current federal government, is to recognise that STEM skills are vital for economic recovery in our very troubled post-pandemic period. And there is currently there is new legislation going through Parliament in Canberra to reform higher education. And part of the reform that people will see is a greater emphasis on STEM-based careers. And so it's a wonderful time for someone who's interested in science, technology, engineering and mathematics to actually see the wealth of opportunities for very, very fulfilling careers, as well as the fact that Australian universities will be increasingly turning to those areas as areas of priority under government policy direction. So it's a very interesting time to think about STEM. It's also, of course, includes the digital domain, and just about every career now needs digital skills. So one of the important messages about STEM is it's not necessarily all about science and engineering. It's very much about the digital and IT side, and being digitally savvy in the 21st century is sort of a core skill set no matter what you're doing. Now, there are Australian universities now with law programs where every law student has to be able to program an app, because having digital skills is now vitally important to their future to be effective lawyers or to use the law and their legal capability in whatever career they choose. So from my perspective, this is a really important moment to reflect on how important STEM is. And if you have interest and aptitude and willing to learn and to commit the energies you need, it is a really fulfilling part of what will be a very challenging economic recovery in Australia over the next few years.
Some great advice there, Barney. And I think we'll wrap it up there. It's a very good place to wrap it up. So thank you for your time today and your generosity, your family as well, in offering to help Newcomb Secondary College's current students. And we do hope that one day the restrictions loosen and we can invite you back to the school, present the award yourself maybe. And yeah, that would be fantastic to see you again.
No, thanks, Jennifer. I've enjoyed the chat. And I can't help but call it Newcomb High, because that's what it was when I was there and Lynn and Jerry were there. So it's Newcomb High to us. And I won't sing the school song from 1971, but I can, just to reassure people who might like to know whether the Iron Anchor resonates all these years later. Yes, it does. And there are a number of us that could burst into song, and I'm one of them. I won't. But also to say well done to the school, to the principal and the staff. They're doing a great job. And from what I can see, some really exciting projects at Newcomb Secondary College. And I am looking forward to visiting again when the opportunity arises and we get through this period, and certainly to meet the recipients of the Glover Family Award. So Jennifer, thank you. And sort of to say to all the alumni out there, please get behind this program. It's great to have as many of us as possible supporting a great school. So thank you, Jennifer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.